What's up, guys? Welcome to another UFC Quick Picks here on the Mayo Media Network. We have UFC Paris this weekend. Renato Moicano versus Benoit Saint-Denis in the main event in Paris. Early fight times and 14 fights on the slate. Should be a pretty crazy event here. As always, I'm going to give you my favorite cash game play, tournament play, salary play, and a matchup I like on the slate. And let's just dive right into it with my cash game play of the week. It's going to be Benoit Saint-Denis at 9K. 9K is pretty cheap on this slate, considering we have 6 fighters priced above him, and he's a heavy favorite in the main event, pushing minus 300 on some sites against Renato Moicano. He's also been an elite fantasy scorer throughout his UFC career. In wins, put up 109, 149, 115, 136, and 105. Just elite pacing, aggression, and wrestling, and the ability to win inside the distance, which he's also minus 200 to win inside the distance here. I definitely think Moicano's live, and I think Moicano's a very viable tournament target. Moicano's a better technical fighter than Benoit Saint-Denis. Benoit Saint-Denis still defending strikes at 42%. Doesn't move his head, he gets hurt. It's like Moicano can beat him, but Moicano's shown much worse durability, and it is a little bit breakable, so that's kind of why Saint-Denis is the favorite at home in France for this main event. Regardless, I think he's a fighter you need to play in cash games. He's going to have a very, very strong projection and ultimately somewhat safe given his money line, inside distance line, and 5-round matchup. So Saint-Denis in cash games for me. All right, let's move on to tournaments. There are a handful of boom or bust fighters on this slate, so I'm sure I'll be wrong, but I am going to target a lot of them because on 14 fight slates, we need to be shooting for ceiling performances, right? There's going to be 6 winners on the optimal, and then there's going to be another 8 winners who do not score enough points to be optimal. So having a decent performance in a win is not good enough. We need like pure ceiling performances. So I'm a little more willing to take risks this week. And there's a lot of boomer bust guys. Even at the top, Klein, Charrier, Brito, Imavov, Oki, Cavalcante, Battle, Kudalaba, a lot of these fighters are boomer bust. I'm going to throw out Balaji Oki here at 8.8K against Chris Duncan, and I like both sides of this fight. It's minus 170 to end inside the distance. It's also the opening prelim fight. Really, what I like about Oki is that he's a physical fighter, a good athlete. He has power in his hands, and he's won a lot of fights by early knockout. Now, he did not do that in his UFC debut, and he scored in the 60s because he's just not going to produce a lot of points over the duration. 60 significant strikes, 1 takedown, and a split decision win in his UFC debut. It's going to be a complete bust if this fight extends, and it very well might. And Chris Duncan is a capable boxer and wrestler and might be able to put up a fight here, but Chris Duncan's also been badly hurt, on more than one occasion. He was brutally knocked out in the Contender Series in his first try, and then he came back for a second try, and he was essentially knocked out again, but somehow woke back up on the ground and came back and won that fight by knockout in one of the crazier comeback performances that they've ever had on the show. He was kind of hurt by Omar Morales in his UFC debut. He gets hurt, and I'm not, it's hard to quantify, but I do think Olaji is a more technical striker, more powerful striker, and probably the more durable guy, and that's why he's favored here. He's minus 105 to win inside the distance, which is decent. It's not a guarantee, but I think he has early KO upside. His UFC debut scored 62 points, so I don't think the public's going to flock to him there at 8.8K. I'm not going to be extremely overweight to him, but I definitely like Oki this week for pure upside. I think he's a little bit sneaky in tournaments. All right, next up, my salary play of the week. I'm going to go with Kevin Jousset at 7.7K. The issue here with a lot of these fighters in this upper 7K range is that they have so much more win equity than the fighters priced cheaply, but not a lot of them have great ceilings, and that's my concern with Jousset, who's more of a technical kickboxer, projects to win a competitive decision if he wins at all. So I'm a little bit nervous about the ceiling on Jousset, but he's shown some tools that I think can translate to a higher quality of competition, which he will be facing in Brian Battle this week. I picked Battle to win. I'm a little bit second guessing that, but Battle is the more effective striker here, the more effective submission grappler. He's fought better competition. He can fight through adversity. He's got good cardio. I really like Battle. But Kevin Jousset is probably more technical, just coming off a 134 significant strike performance against Song Kenan, where he landed 41 leg strikes. And there's a good chance that battle is going to be pressuring him, and it's kind of going to be walking into jabs and leg kicks. And at home in France for Jousset, I do think Jousset can fight competitively and or win rounds against Battle. And also, Jousset is a black belt in judo. I don't think he's going to dominate on the ground by any means, but he could mix in a takedown or two. He's averaged 1 per 15 minutes, or he's averaged 1 per fight in the UFC in 2 fights. At 7.7K, some concerns about the upside. Would you say 475 to win inside the distance? It's not great. And I will be spreading out my exposure, but I like the tools Jousset has. I think he can compete with Battle. I think he has win equity for this range and maybe sneaky upside as well. So don't mind Jousset there at 7.7K. And finally, my matchup of the week. I'll go with a less obvious one than some others I could choose. How about Omar Sy versus Dawoon Jung? Sy's 9.4K, Jung 6.8K. Sy's a big favorite, pushing minus 600. Jung is plus 390, plus 425, depending on where you look. And Sy is a prospect. He's 10-0. He's a pretty strong wrestler. That's what he's shown on the regional scene mostly. He landed 2 takedowns and 1 by submission in a couple minutes in his UFC debut. And I think that's what he's going to look to do against Dawoon Jung. And I think he's capable of it. And that scores very well on DraftKings, so I'm very willing to target Sy. The only problem is Dawoon Jung is just very experienced and has a winning record in the UFC over 8 fights. And yeah, he's lost 3 in a row, but I mean, he's losing to Dustin Jacoby and Carlos Olberg and Devin Clark, who are good, experienced fighters themselves, and he has wins over Kennedy and Nzechukwu. And yeah, Sy is probably the better wrestler here and is probably going to be able to take Jung down, but there's nothing to suggest that Sy is a great striker. And if this fight plays out on the feet for any length of time, Jung may have the advantages. Jung may just be the better boxer, and he may even have knockout equity. And so the reason I like this fight is Sy has plenty of upside within his style, an aggressive grappler. That's the best way to score points on DraftKings. He's a big favorite, and he's got a great inside the distance line at minus 160. He rates out very, very well, and I think has one of the higher ceilings, one of the higher floor ceiling combinations on the slate as a favorite. And Jung, we're in a range where there's not going to be many dogs who win. I'm not picking many or any dogs to win, but Jung has knockout upside. He has knockout upside. He has boxing upside. And I think Sy's being a little bit overvalued based on his UFC debut, despite this being a massive step up in competition for him on paper. So I'm willing to take a chance or two with Jung there at 6.8K. And that is going to do it for this week's UFC Quick Picks. Thank you so much for the support. You can follow me on Twitter, Brett Appley, TTP, EstablishTheRun.com for all your DraftKings breakdowns needs. Just went an hour and 45 minutes with my boy Gordo Gambles, breaking down all 14 fights on this slate. Would love to have you join us over there. Thanks to Pat and the team, as always, for supporting us and letting us have this platform as well. Really appreciate you guys, and best of luck. Take care, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.